So we need to start with the previous minutes, which I think were attached. I'll entertain a motion if anybody wants to take a look at those.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, so Kevin Blaney motions. I'm going to take a vote. Rick?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And Amy?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Minutes. So I forgot to say hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Haven't seen you all in so long, I feel like. Everybody looks rested. Rick looks tired. Okay. So next on the agenda is, I keep having to flip back and forth here. The next on the agenda is recognition of public of visitors. Do we have any? By the looks? Nope.
No
Okay.
visitors.
No visitors. Okay. So now I'm going back. Next we have financial report. It's you, Morgan.
Thanks. I don't necessarily have a financial report specific to this district. We are starting to see some guidance coming out in terms of how we can use the coronavirus relief funds and the ESSER funds. We talked about this a little bit in the past, and the goal is to keep districts whole in terms of costs that they're incurring over and above what they've already budgeted for things like additional staff time or additional cleaning supplies or any extraordinary costs around responding to the coronavirus and its effect on the school. Assuming that we are kept whole from that, the next goal of that money is to use it for allowable costs, which will then reduce the amount of money in property tax that the state has to send to us, which will decrease the pressure on the property tax fund. So, hopefully by your August meeting, we'll have a little bit more clarity on that. It probably won't be till September, October until that picture is really clear. I don't know, Lynn, if there's anything I should add to that. Okay. So I think the main reason that I needed you tonight was around the purchase and sale agreement, which I forwarded to you for the parent property next door to Cold Hollow Career Center. In addition, in the last week, there's another opportunity for a property in Richford that's arisen, and Beth and I will go into more detail on that next. But I did send out that purchase and sale agreement. There's been a lot of back and forth between Polly, your lawyer, and the realtor, and I think we are at a point where everybody agrees that that what each party needs in that agreement is now contained therein. Because voting has already started on the statewide primary, this would be put to voters in the November, I think it's November 3rd general election in your two towns. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions on the purchase and sale. Polly and I can tag team on that if there are any. And if not, I think it would be appropriate for someone to make a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement and authorize Polly to sign it away from the table.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Any more discussion? Any questions? No? Okay. So Amy Irish made the motion. Take a vote. Rick,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Mort,
Aye.
and Amy.
Aye.
So moved. So when I get, Morgan, you'll send me that when it's ready to go and I can sign? Or
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
I can come in and sign. I can go somewhere too if I need to.
Okay. No, I think I'll just email it to you and you can print it and sign it.
Okay, perfect.
So for the second item under that, Beth, do you want to take the first shot at explaining this?
Sure. So at the beginning of the week, the chairman of the select board, Andy Derby, called me and said that there is a property adjacent to the high school property. It's across the road from Paul Martin's house. It's a very small little house. And a couple of years ago, the people who live in front of that bought that property at tax sale. Since it's so close to the school, it's been a problematic property in the past. The woman who bought it died. There's 3 years worth of back taxes on it, and her grandson came to the select board saying that he wasn't sure, it's up for tax, it could be going up for tax sale, isn't sure that he wants the property. So Andy asked me if they have a choice to make. They could put it up for tax sale if the people don't pay the taxes on it, or the select board, or they were wondering if the school was interested in taking over the property. Essentially, for the money they'd have to put into it. They could try to get the taxes abated, the back taxes abated. I think it's 2 or 3 years worth of taxes. And their suggestion would be that the town tear the building down and just fill in the foundation just to make it, a usable lot. It's right below the Richford High School sign as you're driving up the driveway on the left-hand side. It's small, but it is right adjacent to the school. I think it's a good idea. Morgan went to the lawyer to see, like, they would give it to us and then we could reimburse them for their costs. But Morgan said that the lawyer said even if it was gifted and we paid them, that we can't accept it without bringing it to the voters. So Morgan and I wanted to know where you all stood on that situation. Did I get it, Morgan?
Yeah, exactly. And I think since we've got something going to the voters in November, it seems like a natural time, if you're so interested, to put this up there as well. If we hadn't planned on doing that, I might have tried to push back on the lawyers about whether we can't just accept it as a gift, but I don't have a great batting average with pushing back on our lawyers on things that I want to do that they don't want us to do.
Keeps us out of trouble that way.
And of course, this is contingent upon things working, going in a certain way. I think they're just exploring possibilities to see if the board would be interested in pursuing that if things progress in the manner they're anticipating.
So what price range are we talking? Like, what are the back taxes?
Andy gave me the price of not more than $5,000. So there's a couple of years of back taxes that he thinks that we could try to go to to get abated. And if not, he was thinking altogether it'd be about 5,000. It could be a little less.
And then the cost of the demolition.
Well, I think he's saying combined.
Oh,
5,000.
combined. Okay.
And so if this is something that you're interested in, I don't think we need an actual motion yet. We would just need some direction from you that we want to include that when we draft the warning for this November vote, which will be coming up sooner than we all think. And I I'll work with Beth on that, but it would be a good idea to at least tip the Richford Select Board if it's something that you are interested in bringing to the voters.
What's the rationale we would use to the voters? So, like you're saying, it's a piece of property, so it would just widen the entrance. Is that what we're thinking? That it would provide more of a welcoming entrance to Richford High School?
Well, I think Nate could speak more to that than I could, maybe, because Nate was assistant principal there at one time. But in the time I've been there, it hasn't been problematic. But if the wrong people are renting that property,
And it's close enough to the grounds.
Mm-hmm. Like it's like right there on school property.
Right. I'd speak to that.
Almost
Yeah,
on
you just,
property.
as long as it's not in the wrong hands, it's not a problem. But
Exactly.
but it has been a problem in the past.
Mm-hmm. It hasn't been in the 5-6 years I've been there. It has not been a problem. But I think when Nate was assistant principal there, it probably was.
So in order to kind of create a good buffer between school property and residential property. Okay. Okay.
Good reframing, Polly.
What piece of property are we talking about?
It is
Wendy?
right across the road from Paul Martin's house. It's a tiny little house. Tatro bought it. Geraldine Tatro brought it. It's in back of her house.
I don't know where that is.
It's like, it's a itty bitty little house.
The one right at the bottom of the hill?
Nope, it's halfway up the hill.
Oh. On the left?
I think it's blue.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm not opposed for the right price. How do you all feel?
I'm with you. If the price is right, let's get it.
I'm good with it.
How about you, Wendy and Rick? What are you thinking?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You have been influenced.
That's all I have.
Okay. Okay, Lynn, I think you're next.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about our reopening plan. I think you guys have been following the progress we've been making and the public announcements for the reopening plan. I think we're kind of in a situation where we are all working as hard as we can work. I can confidently say that of our leaders. This has been work like it's difficult to describe the complexity of the work because there are so many different pieces that are dependent on other things. Somebody described it in a meeting I had yesterday like a house of cards. We're relying on all of these different factors to build our house, to build our reopening plan, and we've got some uncertainties in some spots that just make it more complicated than normal. So where we're at is that our plan is to reopen in a hybrid model for the start of the year, to bring everybody back 2 days a week for in-person and 3 days a week for remote, alternating on an A-B schedule and using Wednesday to really provide some time for teachers, for professional learning, for some meeting time, and for them to be working with the students and planning for the students that they have on the remote portion of their week. So we have a lot of work to do to get ready. There's been a lot of work that we've already done. We're still kind of in the place where some of the rules of the game are changing along the way. And so we're trying to be responsive when those things change. So our plan is constantly evolving and constantly shifting. We still have some big puzzle pieces missing in terms of some of the decisions that we need above us to be made in order to be able to reopen. So we have some big guidance coming, we believe, next week around special education, social emotional learning, after school program. Later this week, we're hoping that we hear about fall sports. We're also hoping within the next couple of days that we're going to hear about guidance on career technical education. So there's still we're still in that place where we're building this and we're getting real-time information that's making us go back and continue to develop that. As I suspected would happen when we released our plan, was a little bit inundated with contacts from people who were unhappy with the plan. The unhappy was not aligned. I can say that definitively. There are probably about as many people unhappy that we're returning at all for in-person as there are for people who are unhappy that we're not bringing all the kids back fully in person. So this is really, this situation has people divided and split. And I recognize that, you know, the hybrid model that we're planning to reopen in presents some complex struggles for our families in terms of childcare. And that's something that we're working hard with community partners, both at the local level and at the state level and the regional level, to see how could we get creative to try to find some ways to support families by working differently with partners. And in order to be able to do that, we're going to need some help from the state around regulations and loosening up some things for us to be able to get as creative as we'll need to be able to support families. So definitely feeling a push from families saying we should just be back fully in person, especially for the younger kids to start the year. And I do understand that rationale, and I understand what we heard at the press conference earlier this week. Well, at the same time, I think from the start, we've been saying the strategy from the beginning of this was plan to return in a step 2, design what your step 2 is going to look like, because that's more restrictive than a step 3. So let's start in practice being more restrictive. And then if we can shift into a less restrictive, it'll be easier to go from more restrictive to less restrictive. So what I'm trying to be mindful of is some of the issues around childcare are going to be issues that are going to pop up throughout the year. So we want to try to figure out if there are ways that we can work with some partner agencies so that if in real time we're shifting in and out of more restrictive or less restrictive scenarios, that we have a way to ramp up some of those additional supports for our families. It's not easy work, but we have a couple of leads that we're working on, and we're hoping that we can build something that will give some more families an opportunity to access some supports for childcare. I also am seeing some creative ways that families are working with one another. I've seen, families having conversations and teaming up and saying, I can adjust my schedule so I can be home on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I can take your kids on Mondays and Tuesdays, and you could take my kids on these days. So I do think that, part of the solution is going to be everybody working together, because this is tough stuff. This is really big, tough stuff that we're trying to navigate through. So we start, many of you have been a part of some of our advisory teams where you've had the opportunity to get in there and see the 9 portions of our reopening plan. So you've been able to get in and see like the complexity within each of those components, and you've seen the thought process of the administrators and the rest of the team members trying to break down not only the big ideas in the framework, but the actual work plan. So how can we logistically pull this off and make what we have designed operational? So we're in a place now where we are rolling out our virtual town halls. So our community has kind of the big idea, but what they don't have is the level of detail that our framework will give them. So we're breaking that down into 3 parts a night over the course of 3 weeks. We will introduce all 9 components. One night of the week, we're going to be doing that with our staff members, and another night of the week, we're going to be doing that with our parents. So they'll have a presentation to go over the framework, and we'll give them opportunities to ask questions. And then at the end of those virtual other questions. We have ramped up an FAQ document because we definitely have people that have some of the same questions over and over, because they're, really common, really great questions. And so we produced the first of those FAQs last night. So those are out. I hope people are finding those helpful. We'll try to get those revised each week as we go through this process. And Once now the administrators are in the place where they are ramping up their school teams, and they have people in each of their buildings working on their individual reopening plans. So all of those tasks that are outlined in the templates that we created, those are becoming operational now. So they're developing all of those. I think we're kind of in a place now where the big unknown is around staffing, because we definitely are hearing from our staff that there are some people who are not intending to return because they fall into one of the high risk categories. We know that there are other factors and other things that are going to make it difficult for some people to return. So we're kind of in that phase of identifying a couple of big things. One is what does our human resource look like? And then two, one of the options in our reopening plan was for those families that didn't want their children to be in public school at all this year. So we're ramping up a fully remote option for people. So far we have nearly 200 students who have chosen that option. And we have less than half the families, when I looked yesterday, less than half the families had responded. So that is shaping up to be a pretty large group of students in the fully remote model. So at yesterday's press conference, the governor said that I believe it'll be this Friday, he is going to make an executive order that says that the first day of school will be pushed back to September 8th. I was surveyed about a week and a half ago. I was given a 1-question survey if I thought that that would be helpful. And I definitely think that'll be helpful. The work that has to be done between now and then is a lot of work to be done. I'm confident that we can do it, but having those extra days to make sure that all of our staff understands deeply what our safety plans are, and what the complexity of each of those 9 different sections of our plan, what they entail and how to make those operational, is going to be really key. And the other piece of it is the professional learning that we want to be able to do with our teachers to be able to strengthen our systems of supports for our learners, because we know they're going to come back and they're going to have some pretty big learning gaps. We also need time with our teachers to do some professional learning around social emotional learning, because this has been 6 months now, or it will be by September, since kids have been in school. So we're expecting that there's going to be quite a lot of need there, as well as developing their capacity to be stronger remote learning teachers, building their toolkit around how to be an effective virtual teacher. So I'll stop there for now. I have one more piece that I can add in later, but I wonder if there are any questions from the board.
Hey, Lynn, were the 200 students across the supervisory union, or was that just our district?
Supervisory union.
Okay.
Did I say district? I try to get the language right, but I think I might have.
I'm not sure what you said.
For the
and then
students-
was there an age distribution on those students?
I haven't been able to analyze it yet for that, Rick. I literally just asked for a quick number, so I'll get into that later this week. Was it Polly or Amy that was going to ask something? I feel like I heard one of your voices.
It was me, but it was Rick asked it. I was wondering about the age split around the students who were going to be remote.
I do have a question, but it might be a little too nitty gritty at this point. If we identified that there was entire grades that had half of the kids going remote, is there any chance there would be a mixture of some kids going full time if they had the ability to keep them apart in like a small group?
Can you say that one more time?
So let's say a second grade classroom in one of the buildings had over half the kids remote. Would there be a chance that the kids that are in person would be able to go 5 days a week?
We'd have to talk about that as a leadership team. I think that the hard part about all of this, Amy, is that we know that this is complex for families. It's complex for us too. The intention is not to keep us in this remote phase any longer than we need to be in this remote phase. And I think that that's the part that's maybe not visible yet. Our data looks really good in Vermont. We're now hearing from, leaders in the medical field that they feel strongly that it's safe to return students to full-time in-person learning, especially those kids that are under 10 and those kids with special needs. At the same time, I want to make sure that we have the staff available to do this well, because the last thing I want to do is start not well. You know, we got a lot to do to prepare to be at that point where students are returning to in person. So one of the things I'll be honest about is when we were planning, our plan right along was how can we plan to get all of our students K-5 back in person? And we asked for a long time, weeks. We asked to see, is there going to be a revision to the guidance around the 6-foot rule? And we kind of got to the place in the summer where we were not hearing that there was going to be a revision to that they were going to continue to look at 6 feet as best practice and strongly recommended. And once we got to that place where we recognized probably 2 weeks ago, there isn't going to be a shift in this, we changed direction. So now it looks like that shift is going to happen. We have not seen a revision to the guidance yet, the written guidance, and I suspect that may be coming. So I just, you know, this plan will be evolving, and the hope is that we can start well and that we can make a shift as soon as we're able to ramp up to that.
Yeah, and I would support that even if the guidance does change here in the last minute to less than 6 feet, that it feels like it would make the most sense to start in this hybrid and get it together well before we mix all kids together and fall on our face a little bit.
There's a lot to navigate in this, and I think that, you know, I do hope that you guys will consider participating in some of our virtual town halls. There's, you know, and the principals are welcome to jump in here. There's a lot of details that have to be figured out at the school level and at the SU level, and I'll just talk about one that's really kind of complex, and that's navigating the mornings and getting everybody into the building and going through all of the health screenings and managing. Is there going to be a backup of traffic? Because about half of our families are saying they're not going to put their kids on the bus. So how are we going to manage traffic? How are we going to get people in? So, you know, it is appealing to be able to practice that with half of our students before we ramp to twice as many kids trying to come in at once in the morning. So those are some details and some of the complexities that these leaders are planning for. Do any of the leaders want to add in anything here?
I would just add that we're just discovering that every component of this, like Lynn mentioned before, is really interconnected. So like the challenge she just mentioned about the morning relies on us knowing how many staff we will have and how many students we will have, and knowing what our schedules for all of our staff are so we know who's available to aid in screening, ride buses and monitor, you know, to check students and do the health screenings. And so every single component connects to probably 7 or 8 other major decision points. And the challenge we faced most of this summer was not having all of the information. So as more comes out, we can put more pieces together, but there are still some pieces that we're still gathering at this point. And so it's been a very complicated process, because as you pull one thread, much more unravels that you have to attend to.
Anybody else want to throw anything in there? So there's one more piece I want to introduce to all of you, and I'm going to bring this back to your August board meeting. The guidance came out for hybrid learning, I think it was July 15th. And in the guidance, there was language about the board's role in determining the reopening plan. So this has been a process that you all have engaged with, but there has been no indication that the board members should be the ones that are making a determination about how schools should reopen. When we asked the secretary for clarification on that, he indicated that he was not saying that it needed to be your decision, but there needed to be a written procedure in place so that knowing that if it wasn't the board, that the superintendent was responsible for the reopening plan. So I have drafted a hybrid instructional model procedure that I just want you to lay eyes on tonight, and I'll bring this back in August. Morgan, you'll have to allow me to be able to share.
You should be good now.
Oops. Sorry, too many screens open at once. Okay. So this would be a procedure, not a policy. I need to change that. Sorry. So it's really about, that we're focused on supporting academic and social emotional needs of all of our students, safeguarding the health and safety pieces and the child welfare and nutrition, specific to the pandemic, and that we're focused on the high quality education piece. The piece that I think you hear this from us all the time, is around us leaning into using that data to ensure our students are continuing to make progress. And that's why our work around MTSS continues to be so very important. It was important before, but in the middle of a pandemic, it is even more important for us. So these are outlined clearly from the Agency of Education about my responsibilities, that I'll be responsible for following and implementing the agency and the Department of Health's formal rules and procedures for implementing hybrid learning. And that's what our reopening plans have been designed on. They're foundationally what those plans are built on. Like in-person instruction, hybrid and remote learning should be implemented as part of a coherent instructional system design. These are the 4 elements that we're required to make sure we have in place within our system. And we have been working on these right along. These have been priorities that we've been working on. And then these are the responsibilities of the superintendent to determine the grade levels that are going to receive in-person instruction and the frequency of the instruction, ensuring that the emphasis is placed on the priority standards and the social emotional learning, providing a process for sign up and discontinuing of the fully remote option for families, setting consistent and clear expectations for attendance throughout the SU, setting expectations for the completion of student work and achievement of academic milestones, proficiencies, and benchmarks, providing a description of the hybrid learning experiences that'll be comparable to in-person instruction, and to provide the educational supports, including teacher-student check-ins and other supports for the EST system or process. Plan for special education and related services, the nutrition for meals for both remote and in-person, and making sure that students have opportunities to participate in in-person activities that we can still provide, club, sports, music, etc. I'll work with the union in addressing the working conditions relative to implementing hybrid learning. So any initial thoughts or questions about a written procedure for this? Holly, are you trying to talk because we can't hear you?
How about now? Did you come up with the bulleted items, the responsibilities?
So I cannot take credit for doing all of this. So this was one of those tasks that was we were surprised by this because our plans were already released by the time this guidance came out. Or they were, I don't know if it was already released or it was right after or right before it was released. So if the intention in the plan was to really have boards do that, we would have needed to know that months prior to be able to ramp you up and prepare you with the information that you would have needed to be able to do that. So this is really a description of comprehensively the things that we know we need to attend to. And this has been developed with multiple superintendents.
Got you. I was just looking at, because some of the things seem like it's not solely your responsibility. That's why I ask.
Well, the reality is everything that happens
is your responsibility.
I might not have to be the one that does the groundwork to make it happen, but I'm responsible for ensuring that those things do occur within our system.
Right. Like, for instance, setting expectations for the completion of student work, like that seems like that's not at your level. that seems like those decisions would be made someplace else. That's why I ask. I don't know.
I think that this is all part of the big work that we're trying to do as a system. We want to
Okay.
make sure there's consistency throughout. And I think that that's been something that the leaders have been working on right along. We started last March trying to make sure we had some consistency around, workload and grading expectations. And some of these are we have guidance from the agency, or we have requirements within our education quality standards that guide some of those things as well.
Right. Yeah, no, it looks good.
So I'm going to send this out to you as an email, and you will get another look at this at your August meeting. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. So we'll keep working hard. Join us for any of the virtual meetings, or if you have questions, like I said, reach out, or you could always throw something in the FAQ as well.
I will say, Linda, FAQ was helpful even for me as a parent, just kind of looking through and perusing some of the things I hadn't even thought of and getting like that immediate answer. So I think you did a nice job with that.
Thank you. It was like the list that I texted Courtney partway through the day, and I said, "Are you adding to this list? Because it feels like I'm working and working and working, and the list isn't ending." And she finally stopped adding partway through the day.
Fair.
That's all I have, Polly.
Okay, so next we have board business. I forgot, welcome Jen. Jen, welcome. This is our first board meeting together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
A busy few weeks, but really enjoyable.
I bet it's been a busy few weeks. Good.
It's hard enough to be but to become a principal during a pandemic, I can't even imagine. Jen's doing a great job, though. I'm so used to having Jen around for all of our meetings, I didn't even catch on that this was your first official board meeting, Jen.
No problem.
So board business, do we have any future agenda items you want to see? Anything you want to talk about? Going once?
Yep. So we need, at one point in time, we need to put on the regular meeting agenda, the Cold Hollow Tech Center plan, or what we're thinking about.
Okay.
You want that in August, or do you want me to add it in September? What are you thinking?
Let's
We're
just go
planning on bringing that back in August,
Okay.
hoping to have some revised numbers and plans from Black River by your August meeting.
Anything else? Going once, going twice, sold. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Wendy. Wendy made the motion. I'm going to take a vote. Rick?
Oh, aye.
Amy?
Hi.
Wendy?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And more.
Aye.
Great. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank
See you
you.
around.
Have a
See
good
you
night.
guys.
Bye.